This is HOA mess. The hazard notice hit my door while the snow was still falling. You are about to learn how fast a tow truck can hook a car. Pamela screamed that I ignored notices, and the next step was towing and a lien threat. She stood in front of my sedan waving a clipboard, her tiny body camera clipped to her red parka catching every word. The mailbox behind her was buried under 2 feet of plow snow, invisible except for the bent post sticking out like a grave marker. I am an appliance repair tech. I had been on a service call in Murray when the storm hit Salt Lake City 3 days ago. My phone died halfway through the job and I did not get home until 10 at night. By then the plow had turned my mailbox into an igloo and I collapsed into bed because I had another emergency call at 6 in the morning. Now Pamela Thompson stood on my driveway in freezing fog that made the whole neighborhood look haunted, telling me I was in violation of Pine and Powder Association Guidelines Section 12.4, mailbox visibility and snow clearance within 24 hours of storm end. I have all day, and so does my fine meter, she said. Her voice cut through the wind like a blade. She jabbed the clipboard toward my face. You ignored 3 notices. You will pay the fee, then you will pay the fee about the fee. I never got any notices, I said. I kept my voice calm. My ice scraper was still in my hand from clearing the windshield 10 minutes earlier. She smirked and tapped the body camera. I personally delivered them. I have timestamps. This is your final courtesy before I authorize the tow vendor. That was when I realized she was not here to help. She was here to win. Pamela Thompson was the Special Assessment Coordinator for the Pine and Powder Association, which meant she could invent fees faster than I could dispute them. She had been on the board for 6 years and everyone in the neighborhood knew certain homes got special treatment while others got buried in violations. My house was one of the buried ones. Salt Lake City gets lake effect snow that can drop a foot overnight, and our HOA rules treated every storm like a federal disaster. Mailboxes had to be cleared within 24 hours. Sidewalks had to be shoveled to bare concrete. Snow piles could not block sight lines. Driveways could not have tire ruts deeper than 3 inches. The rules went on for pages, and Pamela enforced them like a prosecutor looking for a promotion. I work nights half the time, and my shifts run 12 hours when things break. I did not have time to babysit a mailbox. But here she was, waving a stack of printed photos of snowy sidewalks like they were crime scene evidence. You have until noon, she said. Then I call the tow truck. And once the lien process starts, you will be banned from the clubhouse, the gym, and the trail access until you are current. I looked at the mailbox. The storm had ended Tuesday night. It was now Friday morning. The plow had shoved so much snow against the post that the box itself was invisible. I had been gone for 2 of those days because a commercial fridge at a restaurant in West Valley failed, and I had to source parts from 3 suppliers. I started digging with the ice scraper. The snow was packed hard, frozen overnight into a solid berm. My hands were already numb and I had another call in an hour. Pamela watched me struggle for 30 seconds, then turned and walked to her SUV parked across the street. She pulled out a tape measure and a small folding ruler. "What are you doing?" I said. "Documenting," she said. She walked to the edge of my driveway and started measuring the width of the cleared path. She wrote notes on her clipboard without looking up. That was the beginning. What I did not know yet was that Pamela had been waiting for this. She had a cozy relationship with a tow vendor, and the call logs would later show it. She had fined 3 other homeowners in the past 2 months for mailbox violations, and 2 of them paid rather than fight. The third guy moved out. I stayed polite, because polite makes bullies careless. I dug the mailbox free in 20 minutes. My fingers were burning cold and I was late for my next job. Pamela took photos of the cleared mailbox, then walked back to her SUV and drove away without another word. I thought that was the end of it. It was not. That afternoon I got an email with a formal violation notice, $50 fine for late mailbox clearance, another $25 administrative fee for requiring a follow-up inspection, and a warning that one more winter maintenance violation would result in amenity suspension and a hearing before the board. I work for a living. I do not have time to fight about a mailbox. But $50 for clearing snow after a storm while I was on an emergency job felt like theft. I called the Pine and Powder Association office and got voicemail. I left a message asking for an appeal process. No one called back. 2 days later, another notice arrived. This one was taped to my front door when I got home from a service call in Taylorsville. It said I had failed to remove ice buildup on my front walkway within the required 72-hour window, and I was being fined another $75. I looked at my walkway. There was a thin glaze of ice near the steps where runoff from the roof had frozen overnight. I had salted it that morning before I left. I took photos of the salt residue and the mostly clear path. Then I went inside and wrote an email to the HOA office with the photos attached. I explained my work schedule and asked for a meeting to discuss the violations. Again, no response. The next violation came 4 days later. This time Pamela showed up at my house at 7 in the morning with a surprise sidewalk measuring stunt. She had a folding ruler, and she went down on one knee in front of my driveway to measure the width of the cleared path. Your cleared width is 31 inches, she said. The requirement is 36 inches minimum for accessibility compliance. I watched from the doorway. I had cleared the driveway 2 days ago, and the edges had gotten a little narrow where the snowbanks built up, but it was still plenty wide to walk through. I will widen it today, I said. Too late, she said. She wrote something on her clipboard. This is a recorded violation. $100 fine. And since this is your third winter maintenance violation in 2 weeks, you are now subject to amenity suspension pending a compliance hearing. That was when I realized this was not about safety or rules. This was about control. Pamela had decided I was a target, and she was going to bury me in fines until I either paid up or left. I asked when the hearing would be. She said the board meets once a month, and the next meeting was 3 weeks away. Until then, my key card for the clubhouse and trailgate would be deactivated. I did not use the clubhouse, but the principle made my blood boil. I need to work, I said. I do not have time to measure sidewalks every morning. Then hire a service, she said. Or pay the fines. I have all day, and so does my fine meter. She walked back to her SUV and drove off. I stood in the driveway with my ice scraper and felt the cold seeping through my coat. I needed help. There was a neighbor 2 doors down named Eugene. He was retired, older, and he sat near the front at HOA meetings with a small digital recorder because he did not trust the board. I had seen him at a few meetings before, but we had never really talked. I knocked on his door that evening. He answered in a flannel shirt and wool socks, holding a mug of coffee. I know why you are here, he said. Pamela got you too. He let me in. His living room was warm and cluttered with books and file boxes. He pulled out a 3-ring binder labeled HOA Meeting Notes and flipped it open. "She did this to me last year," he said. "Fined me for a snowbank that was technically on the curb strip, but she claimed it blocked the sidewalk. I fought it, and she tried to get me banned from meetings for being disruptive." "Did you win?" I asked. "Sort of," he said. "I recorded everything and played it back at the hearing. The board dropped the fine, but Pamela has hated me ever since. She manipulates the meeting minutes to erase objections after the fact. If you do not have your own record, you are screwed." He showed me minutes from a meeting where 3 homeowners had objected to a new snow removal policy. The official minutes posted on the HOA website made no mention of the objections. They just said the policy passed unanimously. "That is fraud," I said. "That is Pamela," he said. "She controls the secretary and the property management company does whatever she says. If you want to fight this, you need evidence. Lots of it. And you need to stay calm because she will try to provoke you into doing something stupid." I told him about the mailbox, the walkway ice, and the sidewalk width violation. He nodded. "That is her pattern. She picks someone, hits them with rapid-fire violations, and then threatens amenity suspension or a lien to force payment. Most people just pay because fighting costs more in time and stress." "What did you do?" I asked. "I recorded every interaction," he said. "I filed a complaint with the state. And I showed up at every board meeting with printed copies of her own emails showing she was inconsistent in enforcement. Eventually, the board got tired of the drama and told her to back off." If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA drama. "Did she back off?" I asked. "For a while," Eugene said, "but she is still on the board and she still has her tow vendor on speed dial. Be careful, she plays dirty." I left his house with a plan. I would document everything. I would record every conversation. I would fight this the right way. But I underestimated how nasty Pamela could get. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from the Pine and Powder Association office. It was a robotic voice saying my account was past due and I had 72 hours to pay $225, or the matter would be referred to collections and a lien process would begin. I called the office. This time someone answered. It was a woman named Brenda who worked for the property management company. "I am calling about the past due notice," I said. "I have not agreed to pay those fines. I am appealing them." "There is no appeal logged in the system," Brenda said. "If you want to appeal, you need to submit a written request and pay a $50 appeal filing fee." "I already emailed," I said. "I do not see it," she said. "You need to send it to the correct email address. And the fee is non-refundable even if your appeal is denied." I hung up and sent another email, this time to 3 different addresses I found on the HOA website. I included all my photos, my work schedule, and a request for a hearing. No response. 3 days later, I came home to find a bright orange sticker on my front door. It said violation notice in big letters and listed a new infraction: failure to remove roof snow within 5 days of accumulation, creating a potential hazard for pedestrians below. I looked up. There was snow on my roof. There was snow on every roof in the neighborhood. It was February in Salt Lake City. I took a photo of my roof and then walked down the street. I counted 8 other houses with similar or more snow on their roofs. None of them had orange stickers. I walked to Eugene's house and knocked. He came out and looked at the sticker. "She is escalating," he said. "This is what she does. She is trying to make you snap so you do something she can use against you. What do I do? I said. Document it, he said. Take photos of every other house on the block. Send them to the board. And do not engage with her directly. She wants you angry. I spent the next hour walking the neighborhood taking photos. I documented 12 houses with roof snow. I sent the photos to the HOA office and copied the entire board on the email. I pointed out that selective enforcement violates fair housing laws and asked for all fines to be dropped. That got a response. Pamela called me 20 minutes later. You do not get to question the board, she said. You are in violation. Pay the fines or we move to the next step. What is the next step? I asked. Tow and lien, she said. And if you keep sending harassing emails to the board, we will seek a restraining order under the HOA governing documents. I stayed calm. I did not raise my voice. I said I was not harassing anyone, I was asking for fair treatment. She hung up on me. That night I could not sleep. I had a storm warning on my phone saying heavy snow starts tonight, and I have to clear and document before dark. My snowblower was in the garage and I dragged it out to test it before the storm hit. It would not start. I pulled the starter cord 6 times. Nothing. I checked the fuel. Empty. I had forgotten to refill it after the last storm. I drove to the hardware store and bought a can of premix fuel. By the time I got back, it was already snowing. I filled the tank and tried again. The engine coughed twice and died. I pulled the spark plug. It was fouled. I did not have a spare. The hardware store was closing in 10 minutes. I drove back and bought a spark plug. By the time I got home, the snow was coming down hard and the driveway was already covered. I installed the spark plug and tried again. The engine started, ran for 5 seconds, and died. I gave up. I grabbed a shovel and started clearing manually. The snow was wet and heavy. My back was screaming after 20 minutes. I cleared the driveway and the front walk and the mailbox area, and I was soaked with sweat under my coat. I went inside and collapsed on the couch. At midnight, I heard a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole. It was Pamela. I opened the door. Your snowblower is visible from the street, she said. That is a storage violation. You have until morning to move it into the garage, or you will be fined. It broke, I said. I am trying to fix it. Not my problem, she said. The rules say lawn equipment must be stored out of sight. That includes broken equipment. She walked away before I could respond. I looked outside. The snowblower was sitting on the edge of the driveway where I had left it after it died. I dragged it into the garage and slammed the door. I was done being polite. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I explained the situation and asked what my options were. The lawyer said HOA disputes are tricky because the governing documents give the board a lot of power, but selective enforcement and procedural violations can be challenged. He said it would cost me $2,000 to file a lawsuit, and it could take months. I did not have $2,000. He suggested I file a complaint with the Utah Department of Commerce, which oversees HOAs. It was free, and it would create a paper trail. He also suggested I attend the next board meeting and request a formal hearing on the record. I thanked him and hung up. I spent the next 2 hours drafting a complaint to the state. I included all my photos, all the emails, and a timeline of every violation. I submitted it online and got a confirmation number. Then I sent an email to the HOA office requesting a hearing at the next board meeting. I copied Eugene and asked him to be my witness. 2 days later, I got a response. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday at 7. My hearing was on the agenda. I was allowed 10 minutes to present my case. I printed everything: photos, emails, timelines, comparisons of other homes. I put it all in a folder and practiced what I would say. Eugene called me the night before the meeting. "Bring a recorder," he said. "And do not let Pamela control the room. Stick to facts. Do not get emotional." "I will try," I said. The meeting was held in the clubhouse. It was a small room with a folding table at the front and rows of cheap chairs. About 15 homeowners showed up. Pamela sat at the table with 4 other board members. She had her stack of printed photos of snowy sidewalks in front of her. The meeting started with routine business: budget reports, landscaping bids, a discussion about holiday decorations. Then my hearing. The board president called my name and I stood up. He said I had 10 minutes to present my case. I started with the mailbox violation. I explained that I was on an emergency job when the storm hit, and I cleared the mailbox as soon as I got home. I showed photos of the buried mailbox and my work logs proving I was out of town. Pamela interrupted. "You had 24 hours, she said. "You missed the deadline. The fine stands." I moved to the walkway ice violation. I showed photos of the salted path and explained that I had cleared it before work. Pamela interrupted again. "Ice is a safety hazard," she said. "You are responsible for maintaining a safe path at all times." I showed photos of other homes with ice on their walks. I pointed out that none of them had been fined. "That is not relevant," Pamela said. "We do not discuss other homeowners in public session." The board president told me to move on. I brought up the sidewalk width violation. I showed photos of my cleared path and measurements I had taken myself. 31 inches was narrow, but still passable. Pamela held up her tape measure. "I measured it myself," she said. 31 inches is below the minimum. The fine stands. I showed photos of 6 other driveways with narrower cleared paths. I pointed out that selective enforcement is illegal. Pamela stood up. "You are harassing the board," she said. "This hearing is about your violations, not anyone else's." I looked at Eugene. He was recording on his phone. He gave me a small nod. I took a breath. I stayed calm. "I am not harassing anyone," I said. "I am asking for fair treatment. You have fined me $225 in 2 weeks for violations that other homeowners are not being fined for. That is selective enforcement, and it violates your own governing documents." Pamela sat down. The board president asked if I had any other evidence. I showed my timeline. I showed the emails I had sent that got no response. I showed the inconsistent application of the roof snow rule. Pamela pulled out her stack of printed photos of snowy sidewalks and slid them across the table toward the other board members. "These are examples of his repeated non-compliance," she said. "He has a pattern of ignoring deadlines." I looked at the photos. They were all of my property. Some of them were taken at angles that made the snow look worse than it was. One of them was clearly taken before I had finished shoveling. "When were these taken?" I asked. Pamela ignored me. She turned to the board. "I recommend we uphold all fines and move forward with amenity suspension until he is current." The board president asked the other members if they had any questions. One of them asked if I had paid any of the fines yet. No, I said. I am disputing them. Then you are not in good standing, Pamela said. And under the rules, homeowners who are not in good standing cannot access amenities or vote in elections. The board voted 4-1 in favor of upholding the fines. The one dissenting vote came from a younger woman on the board who said the enforcement seemed inconsistent. Pamela glared at her. The board president said I had 30 days to pay, or the matter would be referred to collections. I walked out of the meeting with Eugene. He turned off his recorder. That was brutal, he said. I know, I said. But you did good, he said. You stayed calm. You made your case. And now we have it on record. What do I do now? I asked. Wait for the state to respond, he said. And keep documenting. Pamela is going to come after you harder now. She does not like being challenged. He was right. 2 days later, I came home from a service call to find a tow truck in front of my house. The driver was hooking up my sedan. I ran out of the house. What are you doing? I yelled. The driver held up a work order. HOA authorized tow, he said. Unpaid fines and violation of parking rules. What parking rules? I said. I am parked in my own driveway. He shrugged. I just do what the order says. I called the HOA office. No answer. I called Pamela. She answered on the first ring. Your car is parked in violation of driveway maintenance standards, she said. You have oil stains on the concrete. That is a violation. And since you are not in good standing, we are authorized to remove non-compliant vehicles from the property. That is insane, I said. I am parked in my own driveway. You will pay the fee, then you will pay the fee about the fee, she said. Plus towing and storage. Have a nice day. She hung up. The driver finished hooking my car. I begged him to stop. I showed him my registration and my HOA dues receipt proving I owned the house. He said he could not release the car without authorization from the HOA or a police order. I called the police. A deputy showed up 20 minutes later. He looked at the tow order and shook his head. This is a civil matter, he said. If the HOA authorized the tow under your governing documents, I cannot stop it. You will have to take it up with them or a lawyer. The deputy walked over to Pamela, who had arrived in her SUV to watch. They talked for a minute. The deputy came back. She says you are in violation of multiple rules, and the tow is legal under your HOA contract, he said. I cannot do anything. Sorry. My car was towed. I was stranded at home with no way to get to work the next morning. I called my boss and explained. He was not happy. I borrowed Eugene's car and drove to the tow yard. They wanted $350 to release my car. Towing fee, storage fee, and an administrative fee. I did not have $350 in my checking account. I called my bank and transferred money from savings. I paid the tow yard and got my car back. When I got home, there was another notice taped to my door. This one said I was being fined for allowing my car to be towed from HOA property, which created a disturbance and violated community standards. $100 fine. I ripped the notice off the door and went inside. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. I was trying to finish a refrigerator install before the weather turned and the HOA was blocking it at every step. I was losing money. I was losing time. I was losing my mind. But I stayed polite, because polite makes bullies careless. The next day I drove to a legal aid office in downtown Salt Lake City. I explained everything to a paralegal. She listened and took notes. "You need to file an injunction," she said. "The HOA is violating your property rights. But it is going to take time, and you need evidence that their enforcement is selective and punitive." "I have evidence," I said. "I have photos, emails, recordings." She nodded. "Then file with the court. And file a state procedure complaint that forces the HOA to respond. That will create pressure." I thanked her and left. I spent that night filling out forms online. I filed a second complaint with the Utah Department of Commerce. I included my new evidence, the tow order, the deputy's report, and photos of other driveways with visible oil stains that had not been fined. I hit submit at midnight. The next morning I got a call from Brenda at the property management company. "The board has asked me to inform you that continued harassment and frivolous complaints will result in legal action against you personally," she said. "You need to stop." "I am not harassing anyone," I said. "I am defending myself." She hung up. That afternoon, Pamela showed up at the grocery store where I was buying supplies. She walked up to me in the parking lot with her phone out, filming. "I want you to admit on camera that you violated HOA rules," she said. "If you admit it, we can work out a payment plan." "I am not admitting anything," I said. "Leave me alone." "You are a danger to this community," she said loudly. "You refuse to follow basic safety rules. You put your neighbors at risk." People in the parking lot were staring. I felt my face burning. I walked to my car. She followed me, still filming. "You cannot run from this," she said. "The board has voted to attempt to ban me from amenities entirely as punishment for questioning her." I got in my car and locked the doors. She stood outside filming through the window for 30 seconds, then walked away. I sat in the car shaking. I was humiliated. I was furious. But I stayed calm. That night, Eugene called me. "I heard what happened at the grocery store," he said. "People are talking." "She is trying to destroy me," I said. "I know," he said. "But you are doing the right thing. Keep fighting. The state complaint will force a response. And I have been talking to other homeowners. You are not the only one she has done this to." "Who else?" I asked. "A couple 3 streets over," he said. "She fined them for Christmas lights being up too late. And a guy on the north side got hit with a drainage violation that made no sense. People are scared of her, but they are also getting tired of it." "Can they help?" I asked. "Maybe," he said. "If you can prove she is corrupt, they might speak up." I thanked him and hung up. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail from the Utah Department of Commerce. They had received my complaint and opened an investigation. They requested documents from the Pine and Powder Association, including all violation notices issued in the past year and copies of the meeting minutes. I felt a tiny spark of hope. But Pamela was not done. The following week, I came home to find bright orange traffic cones blocking my driveway. There was a note taped to one of them. "Driveway closed for inspection. Do not remove cones." I moved the cones and parked. 20 minutes later, Pamela was at my door. "You moved the cones," she said. "That is obstruction of an official inspection. Another $100 fine." "What inspection?" I said. "We are investigating possible foundation damage caused by improper snow removal," she said. "You are not allowed to park here until the inspection is complete." I called Eugene. He came over and took photos of the cones and the note. He also took photos of my driveway, which had no visible damage. "This is harassment," he said. "She is making things up now." "I know," I said. "You need to confront her," he said, publicly, at the USPS mailbox cluster where everyone can see. "Force her to back down or show her hand." That sounded terrifying, but I was out of options. The next day I went to the USPS mailbox cluster at the end of the street. It was a central spot where everyone picked up their mail. I waited for Pamela to show up. She arrived at 4 in the afternoon, the same time she always checked her mail. She saw me and stopped. "We need to talk," I said. "I have nothing to say to you," she said. "You have been harassing me for a month," I said. "Fines, tows, fake inspections. This stops now." She laughed. "You do not get to tell me what to do. I am the special assessment coordinator. I enforce the rules." "You enforce them selectively," I said. "I have proof." She stepped closer. Her clipboard was in her hand. Her tiny body camera was recording. "You think you are smart," she said. "You think filing complaints will save you. But the board backs me. The management company backs me. And the tow vendor backs me. You are alone." I pulled out my phone. I had loaded a video file. I turned the screen toward her. The video showed Pamela walking up to my front door 3 weeks ago. She was holding a stack of notices. She slipped one under the doormat, then walked away. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 hours before she claimed to have delivered 3 separate notices in person. I played the clip. She watched. Her face went pale. "You recorded me," she said. "My doorbell camera recorded you," I said. "And it also recorded you claiming you delivered 3 notices. You only delivered 1. And you lied about it." She tried to grab my phone. I pulled it back. "That is illegal," she said. "No, it is not," I said. "It is my property. And it is evidence." A deputy sheriff pulled up. He had been driving by and saw the confrontation. He got out and walked over. "Everything okay here?" he asked. "She is harassing me," Pamela said. She pointed at me. "He has been filing false complaints and stalking me." The deputy looked at me. I showed him the video. I explained the situation calmly. I showed him the timeline of fines and the tow order. The deputy looked at Pamela. "Ma'am, you need to step back," he said. "This is a public area and he has a right to check his mail." "He is violating HOA rules," she said. "That is a civil matter," the deputy said. "If you keep blocking his access, I will have to ask you to leave." Pamela stepped back. She glared at me. "I have all day, and so does my fine meter," she said. The deputy waited until she got in her car and drove away. Then he turned to me. "Get a lawyer," he said. "This is escalating. And keep that video safe." I thanked him. That night, Eugene called me. He had talked to the couple who got fined for Christmas lights. They were willing to testify at the next board meeting if I could prove Pamela was corrupt. I told him about the video. "Perfect," he said. "Bring it to the meeting. And bring everything else. We are going to end this." The next board meeting was 2 weeks away. I spent those 2 weeks gathering everything. I pulled phone records. I pulled my bank statements showing the fines and tow fees. I pulled the state complaint confirmation. I printed the video stills. Eugene helped me organize it into a presentation. We practiced. We timed it. We had 15 minutes on the agenda. The night of the meeting, the room was packed. Word had spread. The couple with the Christmas light fine was there. The guy with the drainage violation was there. A neighbor who quietly says this happened to them too was there. Pamela sat at the board table with her stack of printed photos of snowy sidewalks. She looked confident. The board president called the meeting to order. He started with routine business. Then he called my name. I stood up. I had a folder and a flash drive. I started by summarizing the fines. $225 in 2 weeks. Tow fees. Storage fees. New fines for moving cones and allowing my car to be towed. Then I showed the video. The room went silent. Everyone watched Pamela slip the notice under my doormat. They watched her walk away. They watched the timestamp showing she lied. Pamela tried to interrupt. "That is out of context," she said. I kept playing. I showed a second clip from a different day. Pamela was at my mailbox taking photos. She was alone. The timestamp showed it was minutes before she called me to demand I clear the snow. I showed call logs between Pamela and the tow vendor. 23 calls in 2 months. More than any other board member. I pointed out that the tow vendor was owned by Pamela's brother-in-law. The room erupted. People started shouting. The board president banged his hand on the table. "Order," he yelled. Eugene stood up. He had his recorder. He played clips from the last 3 meetings where Pamela had interrupted homeowners and cut off objections. Then the couple with the Christmas light fine stood up. They said Pamela fined them $300 and threatened to revoke their pool access if they complained. The guy with the drainage violation stood up. He said Pamela tried to charge him for a drainage repair that was the HOA's responsibility, and when he refused, she banned him from voting. The board president looked at Pamela. "Do you have a response?" he asked. She stood up. Her face was red. "These people are liars," she said. "They are coordinating a harassment campaign against me because I enforce the rules." I pulled out one more document. It was a certified copy of the HOA records showing Karen is not in good standing with her own dues. She owed 4 months of special assessments she had levied on herself. I reveal it right when Karen tries to interrupt, so she cannot control the room. "You are not in good standing," I said. "Under your own rules, you cannot vote or hold office." The room exploded again. The board president called for a recess. Everyone left the room except the board. They deliberated for 45 minutes. When they came back, the board president read a statement. "The board has voted emergency reforms that require documented proof and 2 approvals before any tow can be ordered," he said. "All fines issued to homeowners in the past 6 months will be reviewed for consistency. And Pamela Thompson is suspended from her role as Special Assessment Coordinator, pending an audit." Pamela stood up. Her phone was in her hand. She started to say something. Then her phone dies mid-rant, and she freezes in place. She just stared at the screen. The battery icon flashed. She sat down. Eugene leaned over to me. "Karma," he whispered. The following week, the state completed their investigation. They found that the Pine and Powder Association had violated multiple procedural rules. The board was required to hold a special election within 60 days and adopt new policies for enforcement. The homeowners voted. Pamela lost her seat. The new board appointed an independent compliance officer and banned any board member from having a financial relationship with service vendors. My fines were refunded in full, The tow fees were reimbursed by the management company. And Karen's complaint is ruled unfounded, with evidence cited. I saw Pamela once more after that. She was moving out of the neighborhood. I was checking my mail and she drove past in a U-Haul truck. She did not look at me. Eugene walked over. "You did it," he said. "We did it," I said. He smiled. "You stayed calm. That was the key. Bullies cannot handle calm." I went home that night and sat on the couch. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my boss saying a big commercial contract just came through, and he wanted me to lead the team. Things were finally looking up. I hope this story kept you entertained.